Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Author Etiquette. Today I have Steve Stratton, who has an amazing resume. I've talked to a lot of authors, but the insights that he has when he writes his books and how he puts everything, because he's been there. So he's sitting in the room. You know, how many can say that and make it fiction because it sounds too real. So, Steve, go ahead, introduce yourself, and let's kind of talk about stuff. Talk about your books and you and everything.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Travis. Appreciate it. Yeah, my name's Steve Stratton. I I have one of those kind of resumes where it's like, I wonder if he's going to just stay and do one thing for a little while, or if he's going to continue to bounce around like he's got ADD for life. But yeah, uh, I joined the Army and I was headed to Fort Lewis. I wanted to be a radio operator, do something simple up at Fort
Mm-hmm.
Lewis. I grew up in the redwoods in Northern California, so I wanted to stay in the Pacific Northwest. My dad grew up outside of Fort Lewis, family there, stuff like that. So I thought that'd be cool. And so actually the Army sent me the other way down to Fort Ord, Monterey for basic training.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a tough spot, Monterey. And but the DIs all shuffled us into the theater one day, and these guys showed up in civilian clothes and longer hair like mine. Not of course we're all buzz cut recruits,
Yep.
right? And they started talking about worldwide travel, and we can't tell you much about the job, but it'll be in DC. And I just kept raising my hand. And that's one of the other funny things about my story is that my raising my hand and volunteering has always worked out for me. Not that I haven't had to do some crummy things for a little bit.
Mine hasn't.
Yeah. Everybody has a different story, right? I mean, anyway, so it turned out that it was a unit called White House Communications Agency that not a lot of people know about. And it's under the Defense Information Systems Agency. And it supports the president, the vice president. Back then, we supported Kissinger with communications. And when you see the, like on travel, when you see the podium and the presidential seal, that's WACA people that put that up. They do all the audiovisual around the house, or the White House and other places. Not that TV crews aren't there, but they're doing things, recording for, the National Archives, stuff like that. And so I went from, being a radio operator, they sent me through all these electronic schools down through Fort Sill, of all places, the artillery school.
There.
Oh, yeah, Lawton, Oklahoma. Beautiful. Oh, yeah. Snakes are almost as big as Florida. But Fort Sill, then to Fort Gordon, to the signal school.
Been there.
And Fort Gordon's not bad, though, because you've got a real nice lake. You've got, for recreation, you've got downtown. And at that time, the Allman Brothers, this is how old I am, the Allman Brothers had a bar downtown.
Oh, wow.
You catch them in town occasionally, I could afford to go to their bar once a month, and the rest of the time I'd eat Crystal.
Then you'd be broke.
Crystal burgers, right? Have to eat the chow hall and get a bag of Crystal burgers.
That is the private life.
Private life, exactly. And so after that, I got to DC, and my sponsor picked me up, and this is 74, and as we're driving in to where the location was, my first duty station, we drive by this place. He goes, "You know what that is?" And I'm like, "Is that the Watergate?" He's like, "Yeah, don't go there." Don't go to the Watergate.
You can check in, but you can never leave.
Right. Don't go talk to anybody, any weirdo CIA guys over at the IHOP next door, right?
Yeah.
Howard Johnson. So my first duty station was in Georgetown, at the corner of Wisconsin M, right in the party district in Georgetown, adjacent to Washington, D.C. there. And civilian clothes and not buzz cut. So
what was your per diem, like $25 a month?
I got $1,000 clothing allowance
Oh,
when I
wow.
got there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I went all out. I went to Jacques Penney,
Oh, there you
got the
go.
reversible vest,
Yeah.
I got pictures at the brown tie and a check shirt. I mean, it's bad. It's really bad.
Leisure suit, man. You had to have been
Oh,
sporting it.
that's another story. One time a staff sergeant wore a leisure suit to work at the White House. He promptly got sent home.
They thought he was an
like,
intern.
oh my God. Yeah. Anyway, but so I started traveling the world with like the Secret Service advanced teams
Mm-hmm.
and putting up radio systems to support them mainly, and
Right.
the administrative staff. Because there's a huge gaggle of people. It's just not Air Force One. It's
Oh,
Air
no.
Force One plus a couple other planes, a C-17 with the Waka gear, all the comms gear, and stuff like that from back in the day. So that was a I thought the military was pretty fun. I'm living on max per diem, and having a good time traveling the world. My first
Yep.
trip outside the United States was Paris to New Delhi to Dhaka, Bangladesh. And
Oh, wow.
I grew up reading my aunt and uncles like National Geographic, and now here I am in some of these places.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, I'm also experiencing the real, the real culture in these countries. And Bangladesh can look beautiful, and it can also look desolate and really poor, right? So that was a good 4.5 years, and since I was supporting the Secret Service almost every day, everything from walkie-talkies to big base station radio systems and stuff, then switching over to the Secret Service, all I had to do was take the civil servants test, which I just sort of blew off and failed. I was so embarrassed. I'm not even smart enough, so I had to pay attention next time I took the test, and I passed it. But I was embarrassed as all get out. And the Secret Service, they first wanted me to do electronic countermeasures and sweep rooms for bugs and things like that. But then after I took the test again, they're like, "Well, maybe he should just do alarms and video, something more physical." Since the
give him an Atari.
It was only when I was leaving the Secret Service in 1980 that we were having our first computer project, and it was a mid-frame. It was 1980. There's no laptops or anything like that, but so everything was still pretty physical with the alarms and video. But as I traveled with the Secret Service, now my job became bringing in EOD teams to sweep routes, to sweep buildings, to look at elevators, right? So, countermeasures, make sure wherever the president or the vice president is going, that it's secure. It even included during the 80 campaign year, like putting in an alarm system in Senator Kennedy's house along the Potomac while he was running. And then after Reagan and Bush won the election, I got to go down to Houston, meet the Bushes, put alarm system in their house, things like that, to support the Secret Service crew that was working with them at the time. So it was a lot of fun. After I left the Secret Service, I actually joined the reserves, a Special Forces Reserve unit out of Fort Meade, and then eventually moved to Florida and joined the unit down there. And so I ended up in 20th Special Forces, one of the two remaining National Guard Special Forces groups. And that's where my introduction into South America, we got switched from supporting 10th Group down to 7th Group in South America. And that's where I got my introduction into Ecuador, Colombia, Chile, Peru, and training and stuff like that. So I've really never been, it's funny, my career, I was really never in a traditional unit. I was never in a traditional signal company. I was always doing something different, something weird, more small team oriented. And that's the way I think. And you can see it in my books. We had a incident in our family with the cartel in northern Mexico
Mm-hmm.
at the tip of Baja, and that became the inciting incident for my first book, which is called Shadow Tier.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very much it's like a terminal list kind of book, except Lance doesn't exactly run around with a list like James Reese.
Right.
But it's very much in that vein. It's a book about revenge, and but it's all about the Sinaloa cartel, because
Okay.
I still had some pent up energy, let's say.
You had to get it out.
Exactly. So that book sets the stage. So Shadow Tier is actually the way I arrange it in the book is actually National Guard and reservists.
Huh.
There's not enough when SOCOM, a certain colonel in SOCOM, figures out what Lance and his buddies are doing by surreptitiously doing a counter drug mission on the border, but not staying on our side. Right. When he figures that kind of thing out, then he's like, hey, look, we can either send him to Leavenworth for the long course, right? Have him break rocks at Leavenworth, or we can create this unit and have him be totally focused on the drug war. And that frees up CAG and SIX and other people to do counterterrorism.
Okay. Yeah, my first introduction with Special Forces was Fort Riley, 1977, and we had to support the ROTC summer camp. So the Special Forces guys came in for the some of the land nav, but mainly on living in the wild, right? And I remember we had this big old chicken pen, and the ROTC cadets had to go out and get a chicken, and there was a rabbit too. So I remember one female cadet went out and got the rabbit because they didn't know what they were going to do with it. So all day she carried this rabbit. They loved it and everything. And Special Forces guys were being real nice and everything. And I started talking to them, and these guys had just gotten back from Central South America, the Sandinistas, all that stuff back then. And he had this long fingernail. Like, what is that for? He goes, oh, yeah, no. It's okay, never mind. I don't even want to know. So at the end of the day, they gave everybody a coffee tin cup, right? One of these ones you put coffee in, and vegetables. And then they told everybody, you will commence to kill the chicken. So I learned how to kill chicken. You just put it on its thing, draw a line out in front of it, and it won't move.
Yeah.
And then, but the one with the rabbit, that was hard for her. Because you didn't pass a course, right? You had to, kill the rabbit and then cook it and then eat it. And some guy got a rooster because he thought, oh, this is going to be good. That was you could make a shoe out of that thing. Oh.
Yeah, that's right out of Special Forces first phase training.
Yep.
Way before you go to Robin Sage and stuff like that. But in Special Forces training, you get a chicken, a rabbit, you get a carrot, onion,
a potato, and an onion.
You get the number 10 tin can, right?
Yeah,
the classic number 10 can, and a rattlesnake. And so it's funny because even in Special Forces training, you got all these guys who at my time in the 80s when I was awarded my Green Beret, most guys were second enlistment kind of people, right? They weren't taking X-rays, the people, brand new off the street kind of idea at that time. And but still, some of these guys didn't know how to do any of that, right? And then they're like, I got this gunny sack with a pissed off rattlesnake in it. What am I going to do? And so they're making all this Robinson Crusoe, put it over the fire on the stick and stuff like that. I'm like, dudes, no. We're going to take this all and we're going to chop it up and make stew because we need the fluid anyway. And those guys had some of the toughest meat, toughest rabbit, toughest birds because they were just like drying it out over the fire essentially.
Yeah, I think I think the best reptile course I ever went to was I was in an aero rifle platoon with Huey, just got right out of Vietnam. It was 77. Nice. And we had a brand new lieutenant, infantry guy, just got out of Ranger school. So what he volunteered our platoon to go down to Florida auxiliary field strip 6 or 9, one of those two, and say, we're
In
going to be
Herbert, yeah.
we're going to be, Herbert. And we're going to be the aggressors for the Rangers for 30 days on that jungle phase.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're like, okay, it sounds fun. It's November. And
Oh,
that Yellow River gets cold. And so he said, we're going to do everything the Rangers do except, jump out of airplanes. So, of course, you get the new pilots or the guys that are in flight school come out and do the rappelling. And then you got the guy, trying to get them up to the right height because you only got about 50 to 100 feet. All of a sudden, you start, bounding out, and the guy lifts up a little bit. And by the time you get to the end, you're like 10 feet off the ground. You go, oh, but that's going to hurt that guy. And then you went to a reptile course, and it was amazing. Pygmy rattler and the rattle and the coral. But I remember there at the Quonset huts and everything, they had a big old alligator in a cage. I don't know. This thing was huge, and it was just, I guess, a pet or something. But they kept it in a big old cage. But you're 18 years old, you don't care. I mean, you're like, I'm invincible. But at Yellow River gets cold, and you see the little cat eyes on the back of the hat. All of a sudden, you whap, splash. Damn it! The guy is like into a hole.
I have more marks on my shins from cypress stumps that are hidden under the water.
Yep.
Because up north in Ocala, most people don't realize it, but in Ocala near University of Florida, they started a cross Florida canal system, just like Panama.
Yeah.
And we used it for training and stuff like that. But of course, every time we get into the national forest, of course, you go from pine trees and sand right into the cypress swamp, chest high.
Yep.
Yeehaw, now we're having fun.
Yep.
I've had so much fun in Florida training other people. Like SAS, we would do these exchanges with them. And this SAS guy comes up and goes, "Hey, mate, what's this cute little, snake, And I'm like, it's a pygmy rattler. He's going to put you down. I got nothing.
Yeah, they got a lot of venom in them. They're very concentrated venom.
Yeah, you need to put that guy down because he's going to put you down if he nibbles on you.
Oh man.
Yeah, big spiders. And one time at Ranger School, we were doing aggressing, and I think it was the end of October, early November, and it got down to 20 degrees, and I was the only guy with my medium sleeping bag. I was the one happy camper. Everybody else was in the pit around the fire all night, waiting with their students to come
poncho liner. With their poncho liner.
With their poncho liner, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that was great. I remember one morning we said, okay, this is part of the last phase of the jungle phase, and they had to attack Santa Rosa Island. So my lieutenant go, well, we're going to go out there on RB-15s, because we already went up the Yellow River and had, I don't know how much water we pulled out of those things so we wouldn't sink. So he says, we're going to go from here and we're going to, paddle across and get on there. And it was early. I mean, it was dark, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So we're out there on RB-15s, we're paddling. All we hear is this, there's this big old boat. I swear that RB-15 took off like this and we paddled like we were in a cartoon. And then we get there, and we always kept pokey bait in our in the fatigues and BDUs or whatever. And the Rangers shoot you or whatever, and you're down and you go, hey, bottom pocket. So they take the pokey bait. They would treat you really nice then because they get a little pokey bait.
Yeah, I've seen students walk in, and we would carry them like the miniature Snickers, and they just don't unwrap it at all. Just put the whole thing in their mouth and eat it.
They want the paper and all. So tell us, how did you get into writing? I mean, you've got some great stories and life experience. So what decided to go and put pen to paper or thought to paper?
Yeah, well, the first book, Shadow Tier, I had done things like I had done Gantt charts, flow chart of how I thought the book should go. I had done.
Man, you're a lot like me.
Yeah. I have that project manager kind of mindset.
Yeah.
And then I even did storyboards, which are the kind of things they use in Hollywood to say, here's a picture, and then
I mind map it. Mind map it. Yeah.
Skywalker does that. Blah blah blah. I did PowerPoint and just did pictures that I grabbed off the internet of all the shitty things the Sinaloa cartel was doing, right?
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. And then it was like the between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and my wife's like, "Why don't you just write? You've got it in your head. Just write. Don't worry about if it's good or bad. Just write the story."
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, so I start banging away every morning. Get up at 4:30, and I'm out here we're out here in Denver, so my crew who's back in Virginia near Dulles Airport is waking up, or so I got like from 4 to 6 before
Right.
my crew wakes up. So I just started writing, and then I started looking around. It's like, okay, I'm going to write this. I had no thoughts of publishing it, but I was like, I should learn a little bit about writing, because I did not pay a lot of attention to Miss Price in English class, right, Max?
I definitely didn't.
Exactly. And some of the writing aids I use nowadays actually still remind me of that.
Yeah.
But the and so I started putting it down on paper. Then I happened to come across this paid mentorship with Jerry Jenkins, who lives in the Black Forest near about an hour away in Colorado Springs. Jerry Jenkins helped write that Christian Left Behind series, 21-time New York bestseller kind of person. I thought, well, okay. And we would submit I forget if it was weekly or bi-weekly, we would submit, and he would edit our work. And I'd be so happy if he only chopped like 20% of my words,
Right.
and that's how I got started. And then I started looking around and connecting with other people, right? Trying to build a team, a tribe, a crew, and got hooked up through, ITW. And then when I got the book done, started looking for editors, then what's this whole query process, and looking for a publisher and stuff like that. And one of the most influential people to help me and give me my early thoughts on how I should approach this idea of getting my book published was actually Jeff Wilson of Andrew and Wilson. I reached out to him. He was very nice. He's like, look, we're trying to be in all these different modes of publication, full up big Putnam, Simon and Schuster kind of thing, smaller publishers, self-published, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, okay. And he's like, so when I got interest back from Force Poseidon, who's published my first book last year on Army Day, June 14th. And then my second book published August 30th, this last August 30th.
Not Navy Day.
No. Short aside, my whole family's Navy and Merchant Marine. So when I joined the Army, they're like, you're done.
Mine was all Air Force.
Nice. Anyway, so he was very instrumental in that. And it's like, well, hey, if you get an opportunity, go ahead with a small publisher and just continue to write, continue to learn. You can always do a different series, whatever. Right. You can always look at different things. And so, to my surprise, I got a one book with 2 option kind of deal, and I actually got, I could say I'm traditionally published, and I got an advance and the whole 9 yards. It was amazing. And my publisher told me, by the way, I'm really backed up here. It's going to be potentially a year before I can publish your book. I'm like, no worries. I'll just keep writing. So I kept writing, and I just recently went back to those 2 books and worked on them because my skill hadn't gone very far, right?
Right.
In 6-8 months. And so I had to go back to those books and go, whoa, let's add some things people expect here.
Yeah.
So I actually have 2 published books in the Lance Bearwolf series. That's my protagonist. He's a Crow Indian native. I wanted somebody different with a slightly different mindset. So I've got 4 books, 2 published and 2 that are waiting. And then I've actually started another series. So once I started writing, it just became this thing I love to do, storytelling, and stuff like that. So
yeah, I've got 2 published. I'm writing my 3rd. It's the same. The protagonist is more of a team that formed out of individuals that had some common work experience, But after the mission, they go, well, the president said, you guys are fantastic working together. You have a good mindset, and they're bringing a Chinese spy that actually turned on the Chinese, and she's a genius, but she has a photographic memory, but is more than that. So she's part of the team.
Nice.
And I just kind of carry the team forward. Then last book, I introduced a CIA agent who is actually, she is a graduate of the CIA Culinary Institute of America. So she is a world-class chef, but she's also a CIA agent. So they call her CIA squared. And her method of killing is food, but there's no trace of, or she can either kill you or incapacitate you, and there's no trace of it in your body.
That's
So,
interesting. My wife teaches cooking. We have
oh,
1,600 cookbooks outside the room that I write from. So I've got this books behind me. Maybe got a couple hundred. She's got 1,600
oh
cookbooks. So
my,
that's really funny. So uh,
wow.
yeah. So where did you get the idea about your team? Because I have I'm
Uh-huh.
69. So
I'm
you know,
64.
okay. So Doc Savage, remember his team?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that was in my head. Of course, Clancy was a big,
Yep.
uh, and my second book, there's actually a lot of people read it and go, "Oh, there's some Rainbow Six in here," kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, how
Yeah.
about you? Where did you get your?
Well, I've always, in the Army, I was enlisted, right? I retired at
Yep,
E7, Scout Platoon Sergeant.
same
So
here.
I like the individual, but I like the team cohort kind of thing. So, the kind of the leader of the team, Tex, a little older, more measured. They got a couple young folks, right? They're geospatial imagery analysts, but one worked for the CIA, one worked in the Army with special forces, and got all this kind of training. And they just mesh together because they complement each other. Uh, Kim is very intelligent, but she's methodical, right? Tex is a kind of leader, and he's a manager, but he's very good, right? He's worked with the CIA. He went to the Sochi Olympics with the advanced team, right, to make sure everything was great. So it played into the good book. And then Will is more intelligent than people think he is, but he is a cut up,
Hmm.
right? So he lightens the mood. Lucy worked in a uh, secret cyber unit in China,
Part of the
and
MSS, yeah.
yeah, she is, but she's a genius. I mean, just very smart, and her capability of recall is amazing. But uh, in the first book, you find out that she says, I want to make my uncle proud. And she's looking at the wall of, Mao Zedong and all the other presidents of China. But who's she really talking about? I want to make my uncle proud. And so they formed a team, and the team is called Team Texarkana because Tex is not from Texas. He's from Arkansas. Will is from Texas. Kim and Will become an item. And Lucy knows the Cowboys because the America's team. So they come up with the team Texarkana because it's Texas and Arkansas. So that's what
Nice,
they call it. Yeah. So,
nice.
yeah. And they kind of get
I,
together.
I I too have a team. So the first book, it's Lance, but Lance
Mhm.
knows because Lance. I'm actually writing a prequel now, starting
Oh,
when
nice.
Lance was 14. So Lance has got into the Rangers, like he wasn't even in the Army a year, and he went to Grenada.
Oh,
So
wow.
Lance is in Rangers, and in the prequel, he's just met Gus Morgan, a seventh group medic who's actually in Salvador, and he's based on a real teammate of mine who was there. Things
Uh
like
huh.
that. So, and that's some of the, of course, the things we can bring
Right.
is when we've interacted with SF or agency or
Yeah.
Rangers or other folks, things
Yeah.
like that. But it is Shadow Tier is teams, and it has squadrons, and assaulters, and then all the supporters, the EOD and the techs and other people like that. And I've always
Yeah.
been a team guy, right? I used to go when it was like on vice presidential trips, it'd be two of us. When it was
Mm-hmm.
presidential trips, it'd be 25 of us. But it
Yeah.
was team. It's always team, right? Team's
Right.
better than individual. But
Yeah. I like that. I like the team aspect. And I've noodled with a book because what I did in the Army some of the time, a lot of times, is I would patrol the east-west German border. That was third ACR, second ACR, or third 37 cab and second ACR, third ID, and a check border. And so I figured, well, I would love to do a book about that period, right? What actually happened on the Iron Curtain? What happened that people would never suspect of? You're on patrol and you find a East German uniform on the western side of the border. You're like, what's going on here? This industrial espionage, right? So I thought about writing a book about that because I think it'd be interesting to take it from the perspective of somebody who had, done that for years and understands things, because we're getting back in that mindset
Right.
of what we're doing now.
Oh, that's interesting. You were there when there were dancing helicopters, and
Oh my God, I got pictures. I got stories. I got pictures. As part of the time, I was the operations sergeant for the border camp at Coburg, Germany, Camp Harris. And I would always get the intel reports, right? I'd read them, figure out what's going on. And one day, there's hot summer and there's a citrus shortage in East Germany. So what do? I go buy oranges. So, and I go on the border where they're fixing the fence. And people think, oh, the fence was the border. If you touched the fence, you were about 10 meters inside East Germany. You were not,
right.
That was not good. So they had, in Bavaria, they have the blue and white poles every 18 meters or something. Then you have the traditional, East German border signs. So I knew where they're fixing the fence or doing whatever. And on this side of the fence, like 5 feet from us, would be the Grenzhofkläre. These are the special border police, patrol army. So I'd always pull my little Jeep up and I would have a Coke and oranges, and I would have music playing and I would eat it and drink in front of them.
Off, man. That's
yeah,
awesome.
They would just take pictures of me all day long, and I took pictures of them, and I'd leave an orange or two where they could grab it on my side, but they just reach around to grab. So it was a cat and mouse, but it was serious business because and the Germans, then they had the Zoll, which is their custom police, and these guys wore like capes, and they were individual. There's only one of them, but they had a dog, and these dogs were, when they were with them, they were fantastic. But the thing was, they said, if you ever come across a Zoll and he's incapacitated, before you help him, you got to do something with that dog, because that dog will attack you, because they're very loyal to it. And it's those stories that you can put into something kind of cool.
Oh yeah. So when we did war planning, for the Third World War, when the Russians were going to come through Fulda and stuff like that. So
the Fulda Gap.
Yeah, that's right. I was in the intel section and hadn't had any intel training, but I'm like, okay, here's a black and white picture of a brand new T-72. It's like,
yep.
But what's the scale for that thing? And my buddy's like, see the dude over there? See what he's holding on to? And these agents would get pictures of technology, and they'd be holding a box. And we knew that box they were holding was 6 by 6 by 6. So it gave scale to everything.
Right.
Plus, you knew the height of your agent.
Yes.
And that would help you give scale. And so this old school technique, almost like, chalk for the dead drop kind of stuff, that was back then, because, we just didn't have all this NGA.
Yeah, the slide ruler. Yeah, the slide ruler.
Right. NGA didn't exist.
Right.
We didn't have this comprehensive digital scan of the world where NGA could put all your intel on it. So all these kind of old school kind of things. Sometimes I incorporate it. I drop one of those into a book or something like that. So yeah.
No, but my first book, Flames of Deception, I actually dedicated to the NGA and the geospatial intelligence analyst, because I just find it fascinating. And I come up with technology. One of the things like Thoth, which is the god of knowledge in Egypt, but that's actually satellite and software that I created. This is some crazy stuff. But yeah, so you're writing 2 more books at the same time?
Well, I had those other two books.
Hmm.
One which was, it's funny because I thought the second Shadow Tier book would be a bioweapons book. Very much. Once again, I read some of the same books for research that Jack Carr did. It's
Yep.
sort of funny how we do that, um, but it was like a Russian bioscientist taking revenge on Lance. And my publisher's like, you can't have a revenge book, then somebody take revenge again. Put something in the middle, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So I've got a bioweapons story that takes place mostly in California. The bad guy makes Lance and Shadow Tier run around the Middle East and look for labs, right?
Yeah.
Because it's set in 2000. Well, now it's set in like 2010, so it's just
Hmm.
before we get Bin Laden. But the Pakistanis are trying to help ISIS and Al Qaeda look for
Yeah.
weapons of mass destruction and all this kind of stuff. So I use real world stuff we
Hmm.
know, and
Hmm.
then I apply things into the middle of it. But he actually hides his lab. He actually hides his lab in an old Titan missile silo.
Oh, wow. They're
So
turning those into homes now.
I know in this case, and people be surprised if they ever look it up how many there are,
Oh,
right? And
amazing.
they are dispersed because like the one just north of Chico, California, right
Hmm.
where that big Paradise Fire was several years in California. But right north of there was part of the Beale Air Force Base, which is down by
Yep, been there.
Sacramento.
Yeah.
By
SR
Sacramento. So
71. That's where the
yeah,
SR 71 based out of. Yeah.
there you go. That's
Yeah.
it.
I was at Castle.
With the bunny on the tail.
Yeah. My dad was stationed at Castle, and my uncle was in the Air Force too, and he worked on the SR 71.
Oh, okay.
He would go to work in one set of clothes and come back in another. Couldn't figure that out, but maybe he had a bar job or something. But it was interesting. So go
Yeah.
ahead. I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah. So no, I incorporate technology all the time because I retired from cybersecurity, so I love
Yeah,
technology.
me
I
too.
still get reports from DARPA to see what's going on with DARPA and
Hmm.
cutting edge technology, things like that. So the the that book is in theory the fourth book in the series. The third book in the series, um, Lance, the Mexican military, the government sort of chased El Chapo out of
Hmm.
Mexico for a little bit. So Lance chases El Chapo to Cuba, where he's trying to go grow opium down in the southern mountains of Cuba.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm
Interesting.
like, yeah, I just pick all these wild spots, do
I
fun
do too.
things in my writing, you know.
I pick it too. The first book the Toth I created some because they say okay, so they have to figure out what's going on with the Russian oil, but something's not right. Flare stacks, pumps not working. So they get this technology that this satellite software can go ahead and say, okay, here's this diameter of pipeline based on the friction and the heat from that friction, which you can't even really tell. Okay, what's the velocity? What's in there? How fast is it going? Everything. They say, well, what they're saying and what's actual is not true. So something's going on. Or why does this flare stack have not the same burn or the heat that it would if it was burning off a methane versus it's doing something else, right? Or it's like in World War II when in Britain when the United States put all these blow up tanks, right?
Right,
They're just to deception, and that's what the Russians are doing. They're deceiving the world on what's going on with their oil industry.
right,
And the team has to go to Russia from the oil fields to the refining to the terminal to figure it out. And one way they figured out is where a ship gets loaded with oil, where's it sitting in the water? It's either too high or too low with what they have, based on everything. So it's kind of, and I love looking stuff up. My last job it was cybersecurity, but I have a technology background. When I got out of the army, I worked Microsoft, Symantec, and some other companies.
yeah, okay,
But I love technology. I love putting it in a book, but I like where it's believable.
of course.
Yeah, like yeah, okay, it's based on Newton's second law of physics. Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Well, in this second book here called Shadow
Excellent.
Sanction, um, the it the president's like it's 2003, and the president's like, you got to stop the opium. right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Because General Mattis, everybody else was like, no, we're here to do counterterrorism, the military, right? You probably have some friends that walk through poppy fields. I did, you
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
Anyway, so uh, the idea of using lidar, for example, to see what's going on,
Interesting.
right?
Yes.
You know, and you could do a lot of things with lidar. I've seen things where 150 meters away from a checkpoint, with a certain piece of equipment, I can tell how many heartbeats are in that van. That is not a van with produce in it, right? It's got a
Oh
team of
yeah.
it's got a team of
Yeah.
6 in it. So yeah, there's a lot of that technology. I have to make sure, because my first book I started in '98, and one of the hard parts was like, okay, we didn't have this, we didn't have a SIG
Yep.
320,
Yep.
P320, you know, we didn't
Yep.
have this, we didn't have that. So I had to put it in '98. The second book here is in 2003, third one 2006. So I'm getting closer to everyday, what you and I would consider everyday
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
because in
Excellent.
my first book I throw in a device that was really, really prototype, but I throw it on a guardrail airplane, and right, I have my one of my good guys sit in the back. Well, you can't sit in the back of a guardrail. A guardrail intelligence collection
Mm.
aircraft, Army aircraft, is full of gear. There's no operator in the back. It's
Right.
just the pilots, right? But I change it up a little for the story.
You talk about the
So,
Mohawk? So
well, yeah,
slower
Mohawk.
side looking over radar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, now you're showing your age, brother. So yeah, guardrail is Mohawk.
Yeah.
Mohawk today, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
King Air full equipment, SIGINT equipment, and stuff like that. So yeah, I love that. Once again, I'm always making sure I'm in the right time
Mm.
frame. Can it be a viable prototype, or is it something that's a little too, I got to wait for the next book? you know
I used to on the border at the time we used ground radar, GSR teams,
Yeah,
and they would always be up in these, the hills or something, But those guys were probably more the spooky folks because they go out at, you know, hour, 2 hours before nightfall, and they would set up. They'd be there all night, and I went in there. They secured their area. I mean, they didn't play around. And I'd go up there and look at the GSR, and they could say, "Oh, that's a track vehicle. That's a wheel vehicle. That's a person." Boom, boom, boom. I mean, just on, you know,
yeah.
it's amazing.
But they know those signatures. Yeah, just
Exactly.
like a sonar operator. Right.
Yes, exactly. That was
Yeah,
amazing. Those guys. So I, shout out to the 103rd MI battalion out of 3rd ID. So
yeah,
those guys
yeah.
were spooky.
No, in the book I wrote, just finished, where Lance is chasing El Chapo in Cuba. He figures out where he's staying, because El Chapo's he he doesn't have his master of tunnels with him, right? Like he
Mm-hmm.
does in Culiacan or Los
Oh yeah.
Moches and in Sinaloa, right? El Chapo loves to his like he used to. He's now here in Colorado, down the road.
He's not digging
But
anything.
no, you're not digging anything out of that. This Florence Supermax, no
Yeah.
AVX.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but I incorporated leaky coax, and most people don't know this is a physical security capability,
Mm-hmm.
where you put coax wire like you would use for your cable TV in the ground, but it's built to put out a signal, and then so anything crossing it over top
Mm-hmm.
of it will set it off. That became an advancement into where you could use fiber optic
Mm-hmm.
and actually put fiber optic in the ground and then sense what was around it, from Humvee vehicle, person on foot,
Right.
are they carrying
Yep.
metal objects, all this kind of stuff.
We used to put that stuff out. Little, I don't know what they were. They were kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the old stuff we called Stano, but the so I incorporate that, and because of the time frame, it's like brand new. It's like what Lance is running around and these bad guys are all over him. He's like, I gotta quit. He realizes I gotta quit jumping these ditches because I think there's some kind of connection. I'm getting shot at because
I'm gonna get zapped here in a second.
That's right. That's right. So putting the technology in is fun.
Yep.
I've got with a series that's about El Chapo, and I'm still just in 2010. I've got plenty of runway, and then other characters, other things that go on with Los Zetas, and
Mm-hmm.
so I've got plenty of runway for additional books in the series.
Excellent.
And I have started a completely different series
Mhm.
about uh, a CIA psychologist who's deaf, wears a hearing implant, who gets teamed up with a ground branch guy to go get a kidnapped vice president's daughter. So
Interesting.
that whole series has elements of military stuff in it, but
Yeah.
it's really more spy. The crux of the book is really about you can overcome your stereotypes and the boxes people try and put you in.
Right.
And as we know now, people who are maybe handicapped or challenged in one aspect
Right.
tend to super
Flourish in another.
like sight becomes
Yeah.
really crazy good, things like that. So that's been fun to write. And so yeah, since 2019, I spend a lot of time. I have I have a desk that'll raise up. So
Uh
I've worn out a couple of those plastic sheets over the
huh.
carpet here, just like getting after and
You
writing
need to
books.
get one of those glass ones. What's that? What's the name of that thing? It's a glass thing you stand on. There used to be a lot of commercials. Maybe they
Well,
went out of business.
a lot of people tell me, "Oh, I need to get a treadmill." I'm like, "No, I am not that coordinated. I would be riding and then fall down." People
You'd
who
have
can
blood all
walk,
over the computer.
oh man, I'd have QWERTY on my forehead from slamming into the keyboard.
I have funny
So
stories about people that fall asleep when they're typing, and all you see is beep 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 beep. What the hell happened to this guy?
exactly. So
Crazy.
yeah,
Well,
writing
excellent,
writing
excellent.
has become a just a fun passion
Yeah,
for me. Not to mention reading. We've
yep,
got so many great people in our genres,
yep,
right? And
yep.
yeah, so
I used to travel all the time, and I love Clive Klessler, right? So I'd pick up one of his books on a Monday or Sunday, and then I'd fly and read it all week, and pick up another one, or Dan Brown,
mhm.
or Tom Clancy, or I like a lot of the books coming out, personal experience type books, and just how can people overcome some of the things people have overcame are absolutely mind-boggling. The Medal of Honor winners, uh, I don't know if winner is probably not the right word. Recipients
Yeah,
is probably the
yeah.
best word. Uh, so yeah, it's amazing. So what do you do to market?
Well, I've got a company called I can James Apt ABT has a company called BT Designs,
Mm-hmm.
Best Thriller Designs. So he helps me with social media. He took my as much as of a cybersecurity guy I am and an insider threat
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
I am not much of a web guy, so he took my really sad attempt at
yeah.
website development and really spruced up my website and stuff. So the
You
nice
do
thing
have a
about
great
him,
website. You do have a
thank you,
great website.
thank you. That's
Yeah.
that's that's James. Uh, he gives me a worksheet once a month, and there's like 5 things, something about Steve, top 5 things, a quote,
Mm-hmm.
uh, stuff like that. And I fill out this worksheet, and he uses it throughout the month. And then, you know, the other day I made my. I'm messing around with Instagram, so the other day I made my first Caesar salad dressing, and I was excited. Pretty darn tasty. Um, so I'm
It's those
messing around
simple
with taking.
things in life that make you happy. I mean, that's what
Yeah,
it gets
yeah.
you going.
I need one more picture because I like put a red dot on top of my Sig P365, and so I still remember how to do a little bit of gunsmithing and stuff like that. So
They say don't
uh,
mess with my dressing. Right next to it.
exactly, that's it. That's what I should do is put the two together. Don't mess with my dressing. Um, so yeah, it is tough. I mean, I've been watching. So Eric Bishop, who you just recently had
Hmm?
on, Alma Dare, they're both friends of mine.
Yep.
I've learned a lot with them, and some of the things they're doing, especially Eric. So Eric and I share the same publisher, and so that process is coming to an end and will, so I've been watching that, the idea of self-publishing and stuff like that. So, I understood early on, because I'd been a product manager and you know what that means.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
I've been involved in product marketing and doing the brochures that people pick up about this switch or this software or that kind of thing.
Yep.
So I've been involved in that. And it's funny because a lot of my writing skills had come from writing proposals to the government. So, switching that over to writing a book, was
a bunch of acronyms.
Oh yeah, going from acronym heavens and foldouts and but at least I knew present tense when I got to writing. But I knew that marketing and the different types of marketing, right? There's the marketing, general marketing, to just get your name out there, and it doesn't have a high click-through rate. It's not going to sell you a lot of books, but it's about getting your name out there, coming on your show, other podcasts, having a newsletter, and getting to, it's amazing in this digital age how important a newsletter still is, right?
Yeah.
For growing your audience. Okay. And then I'm in an ITW critique group, and one of the people in the group, Tracy Abrahamson's got like 16, 17 books. And she's like, you need to be on Instagram and grow that. I'm like, yeah, roger that. Okay. I'll go over here and muck about.
Okay. Let me I do that. I ask my son or daughter, I go, TikTok too, right? All right.
I'm not below getting the For Dummies books. I have a selection of For Dummy books. I'm like, okay, give me the shortcut, I
think I could be the poster boy for that. Hey, there's Travis. What the hell? So I'd have to comment on something you said that I think is very important. That when I started, I've only been writing about a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
But here's what I found out that I think is very important. Amongst all the authors, right? It is not a competition at all, right? We're not competing just to take your reader, because people will read more than one book. So what I think is so important is a new writer, when you want to write, connect with people, right? That write same genre, whatever issue, or anybody, writers, to build a personal community that you can, like meeting you, but just talking to you here, right? We just met yesterday. I just met him, right? But what you can get, because we're not out to take, there's no competition, right? I'm not out to take your readers. So I think that's important, is when you start out writing, get on Twitter, get on social media, whatever suits your fancy, and just connect with people. Say, hey, do you got 5 minutes? And guaranteed, I would even assume Jack Carr has got 5 minutes. Especially when you talked about with veterans, right? When your veterans want to help other veterans, or whatever, go out and reach out to these people and these authors and just start building a relationship. Put that keystone in the ground and build that relationship.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I had, to be honest, as fearless as I think I am most of the time, I had, I love jumping out of airplanes and doing crazy stuff, but, it's like, talk to Brad Thor or Mark Greaney.
Exactly.
And they are happy to help. I mean, Mark Greaney didn't write me a blurb, but when my second book published on the 30th, he was like, hey, check out Steve's book, and because it isn't, like you say, a competition. The competition is with yourself to become a better writer, and to grow. Like you say, most people will read 4 or 5, 6 books a year, right? And there's hundreds of millions of readers, and there's local writing groups, and there's local conferences. Like we have a conference like Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers. There's the Boulder, there's the Northern Colorado, there's the Wyoming, Northern New Mexico, all these Utah, all these writers conferences I could go to. ITW as a thriller writer's been really great, meeting people, going to the conferences and stuff like that. So yeah, it is critical. You might feel like you want to just sit and write, and that's, you're not Stephen King.
Yeah,
You're not,
yeah, yeah,
Mrs. Hogwarts. I forget her name.
yeah.
I apologize, Mrs. Hogwarts. But so you got to get out and build,
Rawlings,
and it's
J.K.
Rollins.
Rollins, yeah.
Yeah, and it will accelerate your understanding and knowledge of the genre where you're writing, you're learning, and stuff like that. So, very valuable advice. I'm 100%
When I reached
behind
out
it.
to Kyle Mills, I was like, no, my podcast is, nothing.
Yeah.
The only reason I started a podcast is I didn't know what I was doing. So why not talk to people who know what they're doing? So I reached out to him. He said, "Oh, you got to go through David, who's the publisher." And he goes like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, like really? Don't be messing with me. I'm a trained killer." No.
The bus is a good guy, man.
Yeah,
He's funny as
yes,
all get out.
yeah,
I love the
yeah.
bus.
So it was great meeting him and talking to him and everything. But again, and my next book, I'm done for to reach out to you and other people. Hey, a blurb, right? Something in the cover or whatever, right?
I'm also happy to read other people's books,
Yeah,
right?
I am
And
too.
not only to blurb, but like, I was lucky enough to be part of the team that Eric trusts with Ransom Daughter early on, and so I gave him some feedback. Amma gave him some more feedback about the interrogation scene.
Yeah.
Because,
she read a scene out of her book, and I was like, man, I was like, I feel like I'm there. I mean, it was, metallic taste, and I was like, man, I remember those days, right? It's kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, exactly right. And so we've just continued to learn from it. I don't ever have a conversation where I'm not learning something, other than if it's to say, hey, how you doing?
Right.
Did you get over the flu or something? But
Yes.
yeah.
That was great. Oh, Steve, it has been fantastic to meet you.
Thank you very much.
And I learned a ton. I think great conversation. I'm going to send you a couple books.
We'll trade. That's
I look forward to staying in contact. Wish you the best success.
Thank you.
And I think your wife is going to like Mary, the CIA squared.
I'm sure she will. I have a character in my Shadow Tier books named Ellie, and like Amma, Ellie Anderson. I mean, that's like my grandmother's name, but I've got an Ellie, and I'm married to an Ellie, so you know where that comes from.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. I look forward to your next book, the next series maybe coming out. So it was outstanding.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.